register, then we know what that means.
Just to clarify once again for these questions, as Kevin said, the audience members will have up to 30 seconds, but each candidate will have 2 minutes and, if need be, a 1-minute rebuttal.
Okay, the first question which was submitted, the person had written it in. It says, this is for Mr. Truono. It has been reported that you are speaking on the steps of the U.S. Supreme Court on June the 26th on the Second Amendment. What credentials or actions have you done to qualify you to speak there?
Are you ready for the countdown?
Go for it.
Okay, go ahead, Gene.
Well, interestingly enough, I met Dick Heller at an event, and the case that I'm speaking on is D.C. versus Heller, which was the Antonin Scalia Supreme Court decision that allowed for our individual rights to own firearms. It's a pretty famous decision. And I had a conversation with him after that event, and he and I connected pretty well. And so I then went to see him at another event at the University of Delaware, and he called me down at the end of it to get up in front and speak in front of the class at the University of Delaware. And so, again, we had a long conversation after that. He felt that, based on my background and experience, my legal background, that he felt that it was appropriate that I be invited to come speak, especially in the fact that I'm running for the U.S. Senate, and especially from the fact that I was obviously very pro-Second Amendment.
Okay. The next question was for Rob.
Do you like a minute? Is there a minute? I don't remember.
A minute only for rebuttal if need be.
For Mr. Arlett, if you're not for amnesty for the DACA recipients, what would you offer to get Democratic votes?
Well, I think Democratic votes in general understand the laws. It's a very valid question. I don't think this is a party issue. I think it's a principled issue. I think there are many people on all sides who understand following the laws. I think it's very simple to that effect. So to me, we're not out pandering for votes. I think people get that we are a country of laws, and I think that we have to follow those laws. And so there are people on all sides of that equation who agree with me on this, who agree with many people on this very issue. So I think, to me, that's a kind of a non-issue as it relates to it being a partisan issue. It's a principled issue, and we are a country of laws, and that's what we're going to do.
Thank you.
All right, my question is directed towards both of you. Specifically, I prefer if Rob could answer first. That's all right. Just briefly, I'm a dual citizen. I'm fluent in 6 languages, and I have 2 law degrees. I am licensed to practice law in 18 different international jurisdictions. So immigration, I'm very like both of you, where you said.
Please ask the question.
I can barely understand you. I'm sorry.
Would you like another language?
Please ask the question.
My question to you is regarding immigration. You spoke on whether or not people are qualified to be in this country is a right, and you said, quote unquote, your wife learned English to stay here, and you said to whether in order to be an American, you need to assimilate or get out. What qualifies you, in your perspective, both of you, to be an American?
One more time. I do apologize. There's a little bit of an echo. Kevin, you want to repeat?
What qualifies you if you thought that your wife and you, or your wife had to speak English in order to be able to stay here?
I don't think anything qualifies. I think it's a standard thought process that when you come to this country, that's kind of a standard thing that you would do. What we've become today is that we have our schools that are primarily teaching many other foreign languages as a primary language versus that of English. And it's added a huge burden to our schools, it's added a huge expense. And so to me, it's pretty common sense. If I'm going to go to France and I'm going to stay there and live there, guess what? I'm going to probably learn how to French. I'm going to learn French. And to me, it's a two-way street. If it's okay in other countries, why isn't it okay for people to come here? So to me, I think that's as simple as that. I welcome, obviously, many immigrants from all around the country, all around the world. Languages. My assistant is from France, as a matter of fact, in my office. So to me, it's just understanding that we are a country. And if you're going to come here, you need to assimilate to our way of life. Plain and simple. Keep your language. My wife still speaks 2 other languages, but she understood, it was common sense. They understood that we're going to learn how to speak English. Thank you.
Nice.
That was for you too, Gene.
Okay, so I think we have, as I've said before, a broken immigration system. And I think we're really at a precipice. And it's not just about the DACA issue. We're seeing, obviously, a huge reaction. I believe that the president is going to meet with the Republican caucus to see if we can bring some level of solution to this problem. But regardless of what the current immigration system is, that's what Congress does. They create laws to solve problems. We obviously have a serious problem with our immigration system, both legal and illegal. And I think it really is a point of looking at the Constitution, our framework, understanding what should the requirements be, up to and including assimilating and speaking the language of the country. But that's for the legislators to decide. I would support those 2 elements of becoming a U.S. citizen, but I think there are so many other aspects of this very complex problem. We really need to solve it, and not just solve it with another patchwork. This is something that's been going on for decades, and I think it's time that we solve that problem.
Yes, sir. My name is Dr. Ernest Davis. I'd like to ask a question concerning the statement that you made, and also for you, Mr. Truono, concerning the African American population. As I can see right here, it's very lax as far as I can't see anyone of my tones, but that's okay. The second thing I'd like to ask you, just to state, this is going to be a hard decision between 2 candidates. And the third thing, before I get all the way into the question, is I never stopped being an American. I know I'm getting close to my time. So I'd like to know, how will you attract more African American members into the Republican Party, number 1, and then bring them out to vote when they've been historically Democratic for whatever crazy reason?
Was that a question towards me?
It was towards both.
It was for who? For both?
For both, yeah.
For both, okay. You want to go first this time?
Sure. Yes. So one of the things I failed to mention in my career in financial services, I spent about 10 years working for nonprofit boards throughout the state, but primarily in the city of Wilmington. And I think the experiences that I have in helping low to moderate income people getting into houses, working with community groups of all colors, races, and nationalities, qualifies me to help reach out to those communities and work with those various different constituencies. But I think to answer your latter part of your question, Ernest, that's the one thing we don't do enough in this state and probably in this country, is reach out across our comfort zones, the people we live with, our neighborhoods, our friends. We need to work with every community, whether it's the Haitian community in Sussex County or whether it's the African American population in Newcastle County. And I think it's incumbent upon us as potential elected officials to reach out to all kinds of people, to understand what their issues are, so that we can help become better legislators in Washington and we can better help represent all of the people of the state of Delaware.
Very great question, and I appreciate that. And I will say to you 3 things. I have sat down with many African Americans. My wife is a minority. My kids are considered minorities. I don't see color. I see children of God, point blank. And when I sit down with all people, to include those in the African American community, it doesn't really make a difference, but since your question was specific about that community, it's 3 things. And that is family. Really important for them. Their families are really critical. I'm a family man. They understand that, they get that. I've lived it. I don't speak it. I am a family man. Committed 29 years, raised 2 sons, and cared for my parents. It's all about family for me. It's about faith. A lot of African Americans and minorities in general are very faithful people. They've gone through a lot of difficulties, a lot of challenges, compared to maybe some others. So faith for them is really, really important. And I'm not afraid to say that I'm a Christian and I'm a very faithful man. I live my life that way, and then it's freedom of economics, jobs. Green is all colors.
For both candidates. I am a registered nurse, proud to be. There is a big problem in the state of Delaware, especially in Sussex County, the opioid problem. So as candidate, what are you going to do for us in Delaware, especially Sussex County? Yesterday, in fact, Firefly, a young lady 20 years old, died. And we do know it was overdose. So what are you both, the question is to both of you, what are we going to do, what are you going to do to help us? Yes, I am foreign, but I'm a citizen, and I'm a citizen of America, and then I work just like everybody else, I pay taxes. I like to know what you are going to do.
Thank you.
I guess I'll go first this time. So, very, very good question, and as a sitting county councilman, that's something that we talk about and have conversations about and attempt to resolve all the time with our paramedics. Paramedics is our role and our responsibilities in this county at the county council level. So it's very difficult, very, very challenging. But I will say this, my mom was addicted to narcotics. She was addicted, she could not get off of them. And number one problem I will tell you is that I will hold the doctors accountable. Overprescribing them, it's no longer healthcare, it's a business. That's number one thing I'm gonna do. There are too many doctors out there that it's all about the business and not health care. I'm going to hold them responsible and accountable. Number two is that we need to get them real care, real help. And so I know there are some ongoing things, and again, I think our federal elected officials have fallen down on Delaware. They have forgotten about our issues, forgotten about our residents. So we're going to bring real resources into this community, and as a matter of fact, that's going to be one of my healthcare forums, as a matter of fact, and we're going to be talking some more about that tomorrow night at the healthcare forum, and I'm out of town. Two things.
Please got a minute left.
Oh, I got another minute. Oh, okay, very good. So, so that was number two, and again, I think we have to care for them. I think ultimately, it's not an easy, and I don't have all the answers. I have to be honest with you. I don't have all the answers. I think we also need to make sure that we continue to do some things for providing jobs. I think idle time is evil time, and I think there's too many issues and too many challenges and too much depression and too much lack of hope and lack of faith. I think if we had better economies, perhaps they would consider working and be more productive versus going down a pathway of no hope and feel that the drugs is a problem, is where they have to go for the resolution. So to me, it's multifaceted. We have to work with our state partners. I'm talking about as a U.S. Senator, we've got to work with the locals. We've got to work with our state partners. We've got to give real resources to rehabilitate them. But I will come with a caring heart, a compassionate heart, because each life does matter for me, and I want to make sure that we can do all that we can do for them.
Good evening.
So, I think it's a three-tier approach. Let's be honest, the opioid crisis is an addiction problem, like a whole host of other addiction problems we have in our society. And I think the way we solve it, probably better at the local level through nonprofits and community-based organizations, like the Home and Hope that's being this waited to be opened here in Sussex County. And I think the other aspect of that addiction problem is really creating protocols for medical professionals to reduce the level of opioid, in this case, prescriptions, and look for alternative medicines. The second thing is, and I think we can't look at this in just one myopic way, without stopping the flow of fentanyl across our southern border, even if we did the first part that I said, we'll never solve the problem, because that's how people got addicted in the first place. And I think the last thing we need to do is really look at, again, alternative medicines that can be used for treatment for pain. And there is obviously a lot of promise and hope in the cannabis industry. Medical marijuana is legal in the state of Delaware and should be looked at as an alternative medication, along with others. There's some other types of medications that are looked at to solve the pain issue without using addictive opioids. And I think those three things together will help solve the problem.
Good evening. Back in April at the forum up at the Mill Creek Fire Hall, you both committed to doing several debates, and one of you will probably have to debate Tom Carper at least 3 times if they do it the way they've done it in the past. There was supposed to be a debate last month, but one of you couldn't make it. We're having the one tonight. We've only got 10 weeks to go. Yes, the question is, how many debates have you agreed to do with the requests you've gotten so far, and when will you two debate next, and how many will you commit to do over the next 10 weeks?
You want me to go first? I We have been reached out by several regions upstate. We have been reached out to a group in Kent County, which I will get back, we'll give a date. And I'm happy to do debates, but I can tell you this, I will not do a debate with any organization who's already gonna get set up for any one of us to fail. I'm not into that. And there are political officials in this state from the Republican Party, leaders of this party, that have already come out to endorse my opponent. And I would feel the same way if it was coming towards me. I think it's irresponsible, it's ineffective, and that's why people hate party politics. As a party official, you need to be not partisan, and you need to be not partial. Plain and simple. Would you all agree with that in this room? And I got to tell you what, I'm fed up with party politics in this state and in this country, and I will not agree to do any debate with any organization who's going to fail this process. I'll just be blunt about that. So I'm happy to do debates, but ultimately, you know what I would like to do most importantly, as I've shared with Gene already? Let's do a debate with all four of us. Because Gene and I both have this one thing in common. We both want to beat Carper. I would welcome a debate with all four of us. Wouldn't that be fun? I think that's what we need to do.
Please hold your applause.
So that's where I would like to go, because we have such little time, 2 months between the primary and the general election. Is that, we don't want to beat up on each other. And I'm not going to beat up Gene. I know he wouldn't do the same for me, but ultimately we got to go after Carper. So let's take the time of these debates. Let's have a debate of all four of us. We've already started that conversation. So I'm happy to do them, but I'm not going to fall into any trap who's got personal agendas versus allowing the process to play out. Plain and simple.
So I have said, and I will continue to say, I will debate anybody, anytime, anywhere. I think this is an important election for all the reasons that Rob has espoused. I think there's people in this room that are supporting me, and I think there's people in this room that are supporting Rob. That's just the nature of politics. But I think it's important and incumbent upon all of us to get our message out. It's important of all of us to debate the issues so you all can compare and contrast who you think is the best candidate. Number one, to beat Tom Carper, and number two, more importantly, I think it can represent all of you. So I'll debate whenever anybody wants to schedule it. I think we can adjust the problem that I think Rob is sensitive to by creating proper rules where both campaigns get to choose and decide on what the final rules of the debate will be to make it fair for both candidates.
Jonathan Matter. Where are you? There you are. Okay. We lost you.
Oh, hi. My name's Jonathan, and I'm a young millennial growing up in the polarized politics of our country. And with the voter disadvantage that we have going into the November election with 2 months, and with the Democratic Party having a lot more support just in terms of numbers and facts. I guess this is directed to the two of you. Will you actually take on the record of Tom Carper, and or will you focus on the primary? Or will you stay just positive and humble in not taking on his record and calling him out time after time in his record that he has served 42 years for the people of Delaware?
So I have said and committed from the very beginning of this campaign that I am not going to attack anyone personally, whether it's Chuck Boyce, whether it's Rob Arlett, and whether it's Tom Carper. But I have said from the very beginning that I will call Tom Carper out on his issues. I've said on a number of occasions on live broadcasts, there are 3 questions, although I have plenty more. We've been doing a lot of research on his record and really gotten a lot of feedback from people throughout the state about where has Tom been in the past at least 4 or 5 years. But the 3 questions I have for Tom are ones that I think are legitimate because they're about policy. And the first one is, Tom, why didn't you vote for tax reform? And would you support tax reform too? Which, if we've seen the results of tax reform, obviously it's done great things for the economy. Do we want to make these tax laws permanent for the middle class? Do we want to reduce the capital gains tax? And there's a whole host of other things that can continue to grow and stimulate our economy. I'd like to debate him on that and discuss those issues with him. The second thing is, we've talked about this tonight, we've touched on it. Tom, you voted for the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act is failing, and it's really failing the people of the state of Delaware. What are your recommendations and solutions to help fix the healthcare system in this country, and specifically fix the healthcare system in the state of Delaware. And lastly, Tom, when you started in Congress, we had $1 trillion in debt. We now have over $22 trillion in debt. What are your recommendations for fixing that problem? I've not seen any of that. In Rob's email blasts, and he's email blasted against me, not by name, but otherwise after I jumped into the race, as well to raise money, I have not seen him with any solutions. All I hear from him in his email blast for fundraising is, we need to defeat Donald Trump. We can't support Donald Trump. And he has not really set out positions as to why that is. There was an email blast, or I'm sorry, a press release the day after the move of the, I lost my time. But in any event, I'll go after policy issues with it. Thank you.
Jonathan, great question, and this is going to be a battle. Let's just be blunt. We are ready for the battle. We're going not against Senator Carper, we're going against the machine. You all get that? This is not going to be an easy cakewalk. And I won't attack him personally as a person, but boy, will we go after his policies and his voting record. And we're not going to be shy about it. Obviously, as I did the day I announced, I did so, which is perhaps what prompted him to come after me. But this is for our nation's security. This is for our nation's future. This is not for the ill will. You've got to get ready. And the military will come out at me a little bit because this is going to be a battle. Would you all agree with that in this room? This is a big deal in this state, in this nation. And I believe that this race, especially as we get through this primary, could very likely be ground zero for this country in 2018's election cycle. With our involvement with our president, with my son's involvement with our president, and the number one voice in the Democratic Party in the nation right now is who? Joe Biden. Little Delaware could be ground zero for 2018 election cycle. So I got to tell you, we're ready. So bring it on, and we're ready to fight for you, because that's what you're going to expect from me in Washington, D.C. We will not cow down to any one of them. We will focus in defending you and your principles and your policies, and that's what you're going to have from Rob Arlett, is that.
Hunter Hastings, raise your hand. You're on deck. You're next.
Hi, Jim Costas. First of all, I appreciate the fact that both of you have been gentlemen to each other and not been at all unkind to each other. I think you deserve a round of applause for that. Now, when it's not Rob and Jean, it's going to be Rob and Jean versus Tom. Tom's up there. If you take the immigration issue of the day, they're going to accuse you of being child molesters. They're going to accuse you of putting children in jail, all for your political purposes. So Tom's going to do that to you. Don't think he's not. So he just came after you with that. And I want you to answer, not like you're addressing each other, but you're addressing Tom Carper now on the stage. And say, how are you going to defend President Trump's assertion that it's the Democrats' fault?
The Democrats' fault regarding?
That there's no solution for immigration.
That there's no solution for immigration.
Well, I mean, they've been, I guess I'll go first, yes. So they've been in power. I mean, they had control. What have they done?
Like you're talking to Tom.
So Tom, it's time for you to retire. We appreciate your service. The 42 years has been long enough. You had your time, you had your opportunity, and you failed. And so now it's time for the next generation to step up and lead and follow the principles and follow the laws of the land. I appreciate your service. Thank you, sir. I mean, I would probably go more into it, but truth be told, that's exactly what I would do. He's partisan and he's encouraged illegal immigration. He panders to the votes. That's all he cares about. He does not care about principles. He does not care about policies. He doesn't care about the Delaware people. He does not care about the legal citizens in this great state. He does not. And if he cared about the illegals, then why doesn't he stop them at the border and send them home? If he really cared about keeping them together, then stop them at the border and send them back home together. It's a choice by the parent, is it not? Yes? As a parent of two, it is a choice if you send your children elsewhere. So follow the laws. President is doing that. Senator Carper, you've had the opportunity to change the laws, and you've chosen not to. You've chosen to use it as a political puppet to garner votes, and that's why you need to retire, because you forgot who you were. You forgot when you raised your right hand that you were to defend this Constitution versus pandering to those who don't want to. So, sir, I do appreciate you, and God bless you, and enjoy the rest of your life, sir. Thank you. I will be nicer. I will be nicer. But I think the point has to be made.
So my response would be, Tom, let's talk about the facts and let's talk about the solution. So the facts are that some of these migrants who are separated from their parents are separated because the parents have committed illegal activity. Those children are taken care of. If you, as a U.S. citizen, had a crime, you would be separated from your parents, and social services would take care of your children. That's the facts. Also, for those immigrants seeking asylum, those families are kept together. You're not hearing that part of the story. And that was reaffirmed by a number of people in the administration, as well as our Director of Homeland Security. Let's talk about solutions, Tom. The President is meeting with the Republican caucus tomorrow to discuss solutions to not just the DACA problem, but our immigration, legal and illegal immigration problem. Are you going to support the efforts of solving this problem, or are you going to be partisan politician, and stick with your caucus and not look for solutions to help the people of the state of Delaware? I think those are the two questions I would ask him, and I think they're legitimate. And what I was saying before in the comment, in that email blast that we did a couple weeks ago related to moving or to get backing out of the Iran deal, all he did was bust on Trump. He didn't make any comments as to why we should stay in the deal or get out of it. At least Chris Coons had the courage to say, this is where I don't agree with the decision, but here are the questions I have to ask. And ironically, the questions that Chris Coons asked were the very fact and the reason why we should have gotten out of the deal. So, Tom, you need to either step up and respond to your constituents or step down.
First of all, my name is Hunter Hastings. I'm the chairman of Sussex County Young Republicans. I just want to say on behalf of all the Young Republicans in Sussex County, we look forward to having both of you come and speak at our next meetings. Now, as a personal voter, the one thing that comes to my mind in immigration reform is children. And I think a lot of people forget this, that international adoption is also a form of immigration. And I am the brother of 3 beautiful Chinese sisters. And my question is to you, in immigration reform, where does international adoption come into play? What will you do as the next U.S. Senator to ensure that children who are adopted internationally by American families and taught American values can still come over to this and don't get lost in the process? Thank you.
So I think it's a great question. I think that obviously they're partially connected, but I think separate in the fact that the adoption process, again, is another process in this country which is very difficult, very time-consuming, takes a lot of time and a lot of money. So as we look to reform the immigration system, we should also look to reform the adoption process. There are plenty of people in this country that would love to adopt children, whether it's from mothers who decide not to have an abortion and go full term and put their children up for adoption, or whether it's immigrants from other countries who either have lost their parents or their parents want to give them up for adoption. And I think we should look at that as the overall process to correct the legal immigration system. As I've said this many times, and for those people who aren't familiar, our legal immigration system is very difficult. A lot of the things that you'll hear rhetoric on the left about the horrible things this administration is doing to illegal immigrants are already requirements in the legal immigration process. So we should make it harder for legal immigrants to get into this country than for illegal immigrants, and we need to make a fair, rational-based decision. And I'm hoping, cautiously optimistic, that the discussions this week at least will lead to a bill in the House that we can have an honest discussion about solving this problem.
And thank you for being here, and thank you for the Young Republic. Was that question was for both of us, yes?
Correct.
Okay. So I appreciate you for stepping up and being the new chair. I believe you are new. So thank you for that, because we certainly need more youth involved in our party, and because you are the future. So thank you for stepping up and leading. Immigration as it relates to adoption is critical. And I will tell you that we need to remove the red tape. We need to remove the difficulties and the hurdles that exist. And I do know that they do exist. Remember, my wife is a legal immigrant from Vietnam. And so we have some friends, our pastor, as a matter of fact, and our dear friend at church just adopted somebody last year, I think it was, from Vietnam. And we got their personal experiences. Every life matters to me. Every life matters to me, be it domestic or be it international. And if you as a family want to adopt somebody overseas, I want to help you to do that as quickly and as exponentially quick. You know what I'm talking about, right? Quickly as possible to remove those hurdles. And I think that's what you will have an advocate in Washington to be able to help you to achieve your goal.
Hello, this is for both parties. One of my questions I have is mental illness. And the biggest problem I see with mental illness is the health. So we have institutions that are supposed to be helping these people in Wilmington, even in Dover, and they're walking around, they're not being monitored, they're just not being responsible for the people that they're supposed to be taking care of. And then the other part of that is how do we enlarge the people that they can go and see. So if it's a state facility, they're not trying to make them better, they're just trying to keep them there and continue to get the funding. So how do we, and you know, it goes on to another aspect of that is now law enforcement have to get training because of mental illness that's out there on the street, and the families can't interfere because they're over the age. And so the families' hands are tied, so if they see a manic episode, how do they come in and help them?
So, if real quick, the first part you stated, what type of facility? That's the part that I
Yes,
missed.
state facilities.
Just in general, state facilities?
Yeah, well, connections, you know, different places that they kind of house just mental
Sure.
illness people at. They don't have anywhere else to go, and if these facilities are not working and the
Yes.
families can't interfere, how do we get them better?
It gets back down to understanding as an elected official, you're a leader. You know, I'm currently an elected county official. Does that mean that I don't work with my partners at the state or even at the feds? The answer to that is no. I think I brought a new type of an attitude to that. And I know IG as well. Like, prior, I was like, you know, that's a state issue. That's not our problem. Well, as an elected official, as a leader within the community, I take on those issues. I take on those problems because I care. So, number one, you got to have the proper attitude versus kicking the can, right? If there's real issues, then let's sit down, let's have the conversations with the stakeholders, and let's find the real solutions versus isolation. To me, it's partnerships and not isolation. And I think how you use the leverage, if they're not performing, then let's find out how we can get them to perform, kind of like schools, yes? If there's an opportunity to provide choice, if there's opportunities to provide, maybe take funding away to get their attention, ultimately it has to be about health care and not the business. I think to your point, it's become more about the business, right? Getting a check, having a bed filled, right? Getting a check versus healthcare. I experienced that with both my mom and my dad in some of the facilities that they were a part of, which were unlawful. And I called them out on the carpet and filed some complaints, and they were held accountable. Because, again, either you care about human beings or you don't. And I do as your next U.S. Senator. I absolutely do as well.
So healthcare is, mental health is an issue that's been really, I think, kicked down the road for a long time. We've kind of ignored it, kind of turned our backs on it as a society. So specifically as a U.S. Senator, the things that we can do is create block grant programs for the states, because it really is a state issue. And some of the things that we can incorporate in that block grant program is to allow for state-funded mental health facilities, but also allow for nonprofits and faith-based organizations to help fill the gap. And I think when we look at it, instead of having big government programs, having local level solutions to problems like mental health and other issues, I think are the better solution. And lastly, I'll say one of the issues, the whole issue about the Second Amendment, I believe it's more of a mental health issue than it is about taking away people's firearms. And I think if we address the mental health issue in this country, getting sponsorship through block grant programs from the federal government, we can solve at least 2 problems and maybe many more.
Dr. Janita? Have you left? Oh, there he is. I'll be right back over, sir. Take a drink of water, gentlemen.
Dr. Reginetti here. Gene, you said earlier that the Affordable Care Act is not affordable, and in the past it had to be passed before we knew what was in it. I'm going to use that as an example of how some of these things are so convoluted. In reference to the left-wing act that got used into Delaware to promote legislation 225. It's been revised because of a lot of opposition, but I'd like to have your opinion in reference to how something like this can be exposed, or how someone like yourself in Senate in the future would be able to address the nation to let them know that it's just not a Women's Equality Act. Sure. There's so much more. So I'd like to have your opinion on how these things can be exposed.
Sure. Just one candidate?
No, both.
Both candidates.
So for those of you who don't know, Regulation 225 allowed for K through 12 students to self-identify about their gender preference and their national origin. I did not support the original version, and I still don't support the modified version. And the reason why I don't is because I believe this is a parental rights issue. These matters should be between the child and the student, or the parent, I'm sorry, to resolve within amongst themselves. I think when we go down a slippery slope of allowing the state or the school system to take over the supervision of guardianship of our children, we go down a very slippery slope that could lead to a whole bunch of other unintended consequences. So I am not supportive of that type of regulation or others that would supplant the parental rights and the parental decision or judgment over their children. Because if you just take that to a logical conclusion, would we say that if the school decided they're not going to report to the parents that a student gets a bad grade or was caught smoking cigarettes or did something else illegal, where does it stop? And how do we solve that problem? And so while there may be some uncomfortable situations, and I know the original impetus of this regulation was supposed to be about bullying, I don't think the best way to solve the problem is not without the parental consent, nor without the discussion with the parents, so I would not support 225.
Well, let me be clear. Regulation 225 has nothing to do with kids. It has everything to do with motivation and a movement in this state and in this country, whereas they have their own agendas. Let's just be honest here. This is not a school issue. If there was a real issue, right, we would already be aware of it. There's already laws in place to protect these kids. Any kid, right, in the school. Bullying rules and laws accordingly. So to me, it has nothing to do with anything other than pushing forward an agenda to control and determine and to dictate your kids. Plain and simple. And as parents, you need to start standing up and waking up to that effect and realizing that there are forces out there that have real agendas, and yes, it may come across as being something, but it is absolutely not that. Because if it was about that, there's already laws in place about bullying. Why would you need something else? Think about it. Common sense would tell you we already have rules in place for bullying of any person. Doesn't make a difference what gender, doesn't make a difference what race, doesn't make a difference what religion. If somebody's being treated unfairly or improperly, there are consequences to be held accountable. Yes? Already in place. So, doctor, it has nothing to do with that. It's a social agenda to try to determine and to dictate how your kids are going to think. Take that away from you, the parents. I will never support that, and I will defend you, parents, as a parent of 2 kids. I will defend my rights as a parent and your rights as a parent at all levels until the day I die. Plain and simple.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Utzler, and my question is for Rob Arlett. There's accusations against your campaign manager, and I want to know what your opinion of it is, and how would you upstand the law if he's found guilty of those accusations.
What are those accusations? I'm not aware of them. Or maybe I am, that's not sure, so maybe you could share. Unless somebody gave you a question that was asking you to ask a question, and you don't know.
I think this is a personal attack question. Let's go to the next one.
Okay. Yeah, I think so too. Didn't know what the accusation was.
Good evening. My name's John Rudd. Gene, spoke with you a couple times, and Rob, known you for a while, and hearing a lot of good things tonight. You know, a lot of good conservative talking points being put out, and I appreciate that. I guess my question really is more for Gene. You know, I'm thinking about all your conservative positions, with maybe a couple exceptions, but I'm wondering. And you can set me straight on this, but I'm wondering why you've not been a Republican all your life. I mean, why only in the last year is my understanding, and you can set me straight if I'm wrong there, but why have you now decided to run as a Republican as opposed to being Republican, longer term? And Rob, maybe talk a little bit about your history with the Republican Party as well.
So that is true. I've been a registered independent my entire life. When I decided to run for the U.S. Senate, I did, as I indicated in my opening remarks, I did due diligence on the Republican Party's platform on a number of issues. My parents taught us as children that we should be independent and choose the best candidate. And that's probably why I originally registered as an independent, but I can assure you that I've always followed conservative principles and values. And as I did my due diligence and read through the Republican platform, as I indicated, there's not one policy issue that I don't disagree with except for the one. And so I changed my registration to run as a Republican because I think it reflects my conservative values and my positions. And if you want to hear more about where I stand on any issue, we have plenty of video on my Facebook page and on our policy website on votetruono.com, and you can see where I stand. And so, just like the president, who was a Democrat before he was an independent, before he was a Republican, I was never a Democrat, I can assure you that. But I've always been independent, leaning conservative, and generally voted for Republican candidates. And I'll just share with you one quick funny story. When I took my mom to vote the last time, we went into the voting booth. She was in a wheelchair. And so she said, just pull the lever for all the Republicans. I said, Mom, they don't have that anymore. You've got to look at each one of the candidates. She goes, well, just hit all the Republicans. And I made her go through each list. Of course, she did select all the Republicans. But in any event, that's how I view that, and that's how I viewed my background in philosophy. But I can assure you, if you look at what I've said on videotape and otherwise, you can see that I really support the Republican Party and conservative principles and values.
I think that we have a real record. I shared last week, Thursday, of a VIC meet with the state GOP fundraiser, whereas our state chairman was talking about team and talking about the GOP team. And I shared there, as I share with you now, I have a history of being in the fight. I'm not a party guy, but at the same time, if you're seeking the nomination of this Republican Party, what have you done for the Republican Party? Right? Isn't it kind of about actions versus words? And Gene just admitted he shifted into this party to run for the seat, which is okay. We want to attract more independents. We want to attract more Democrats right into our party. Yes, we do. So I welcome to the party. But truth be told, when it matters in the U.S. Senate, there's a pretty big caucus there. And where is one going to fall? Where is one going to fall based on one's actions versus words? I think there's relevance to that as you are seeking the top seat of this ticket in this election cycle. We have proven to be a conservative based on our actions. We have proven to be a person of principles based on our actions. We have proven to be in the fight of this battle in our state, and for that matter in our country, because of my actions, but both at the local level as well as the national level. So I have a record of stepping up on principles and acting when it's really difficult, when it's not easy. But you know what? That's who we are as a person. That's who I married. My wife married me for that reason, because I don't make decisions because they're easy. I make decisions because it's the right thing to do. And I'm going to carry that to Washington, D.C. so very proudly, that we will make all of Delaware, not just this Republican Party, very proud to be Delawareans yet again.
My name is Ed Doherty, and it's a question for both of you on immigration. We talk about the Dreamers, we talk about DACA, and it's a very hot topic because of children and it pulls at the heartstrings. But the big elephant in the room is what to do about the millions upon millions of applicants that are here illegally, some for a few months, some for decades. I don't think we could or should do rid of them. And no one wants to talk about amnesty in either party because it throws up red flags. What would you do? Would you give a work permit, let them be here, and then a path to citizenship, or what?
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. Again, I think it gets back down to it's broken, and and a lot of these illegal immigrants that are here, that are in illegal status today, are good people. They came here, as we all know, down here at the coast, right? We have a lot of folks that come here over the summer to on work permits, work visas, and they work, right? And some maybe overstay those visas. And that's a big part of our issue and our challenge today. So the question is, how do you get them back on track, Doctor? And how do you do so? Well, I think number one, you have to acknowledge and not kick the can down the road. I think we need to digitize this. It's a digital world. Can we not figure out and track people anymore? I think we can. If you're here illegally, we want to know where you are, and we have to figure out what mechanism to do that. There is already some things that are being offered up as different ideas. So I offer the solution of focusing on bringing those that are in the shadows to the forefront. And amnesty, again, they did it back in the 80s, I think it was 1986, and they said they weren't going to do it again. But yet here it is, because either you're going to enforce the laws or you're not. We need immigrants here. We are a country of immigrants, but we need to keep it a legal process. So, Doctor, I want to make sure that we get them out from the shadows, get them documented, right? And then get them on a pathway of some sort, either exiting or get in the back of the line, and then pay a price for not following the rules. So, but I don't think they should get a free lunch and get in front of the line compared to others that have followed the rules and follow the laws of the land, as my wife has.
So the legal immigration, or the overstay visa situation, which I think you're talking about, does kind of dovetail into some of the other immigration issues. But I think, let's just be honest, there are a number of people that live in this country illegally today, and we need to solve that problem. I think, to Rob's point, we need to fix the E-Verify system so that we can track and identify individuals. We should give them an opportunity to come forward, and we should give them an opportunity to make restitution. And for that, we can give them a work permit, ultimately up to and leading to citizenship, as Rob pointed out, at the back of the line. The process for legal immigration takes anywhere from 5 years at a minimum, depending on the program, to 10 to 12 years. In some cases, I've heard it's much longer than that. So at a point in time when we decided to create this program to allow people to reach full citizenship, they have to make the restitution, they need to get in the back of the line of anyone who was here before them, and they have to continue to abide by our laws and rules in order to stay in this country legally, ultimately giving them citizenship. I would support that.
Hi, my name is Luann Riley, and this is for Mr. Truono. I ask this to all candidates, so don't feel singled out, but I would like you're applying to defend my freedoms, basically. So I would like to know if you can name for me the 5 freedoms of the First Amendment.
Sure. It's freedom of press, freedom of religion, freedom to assemble, freedom from, the 2 P's always confuse me, freedom of press and freedom to protest the government. To petition the government.
Ladies and gentlemen, that ends the audience round. We would like for you to please stay around, visit the candidates. They'll be out in the lobby area. I would also like, if you enjoyed this evening's presentation, to come to the Eastern Sussex Republican Club meeting. It is the third Monday of every month. And if you would all please give both candidates a big round of applause. Mike, back to you.
So we've got closing statements, right? Yes. Is this on, by the way? Yes. Okay. All right, so Gene won the coin toss, had the chance to defer to the second half, so Rob will give you the option either to go first or last here.
I'll go last.
Closing statement. Okay. So Gene, you lead off again in your closing statement.
So thank you all for coming tonight and participating, and thank you all for paying kind and close attention. I think we've covered a lot of topics, and I think we've covered a lot of issues, but there's probably more that we need to cover as we go throughout the rest of the campaign. I think this is a really important election year for all of us here in Delaware, because right now, as we've said, we have one-party rule, and we have a unique opportunity, I think, in this election cycle, based on, as I've said, the current economic conditions, based on the fact that Tom Carper, at least by the veterans and the other folks up and down the state I've talked to, has not seemed to deliver on his promises as being a U.S. Senator. If you see him speak, he talks about when he was governor, or he talks about other things he's done in his past, but he's not talked anything about what he's done in the last 6 years. He said, and we have this actually on audio as well as in writing, that the only reason why he decided to run this cycle is because Hillary Clinton didn't win. And I don't think that's an appropriate response for a sitting U.S. Senator to say that the only reason why he decided to run after he had intended to retire was because his person didn't win this election. And so I think there's a lot of things we can challenge our senior senator on in terms of his commitment to the state of Delaware. And I will do that with policy discussions, as I've indicated so far. We'll continue to do that. We've done research on a lot of his positions, his voting record, and we will call him out on that, as I think is appropriate. I'll never attack Mr. Carper personally, Senator Carper personally, nor should we. But I don't think we need to. And I think the important thing is Delawareans, as they tell me, up and down the state, in Newcastle County, independents, like I was, and Democrats alike, as well as Republicans, say they're looking for change. It's time for Tom Carper to retire. And so you all have the dubious task of deciding which one of us is the best candidate, number one, to represent all of you, but the best candidate that could defeat Tom Carper in November. Thank you all very much for coming. Thank you.
Well, again, I want to thank Madam President. Appreciate you, Phoebe, and I think in all of your leadership team, because it's not easy putting this together. So I don't know who all volunteered, but I know it was a team effort. So again, I want to thank the Eastern Sussex Republican Club for putting this on. I want to thank Mike and WGMD if you are here in that capacity, but we'll give him a plug. So why not? Yeah. I think Mike is always a fair guy and likes to stick to the issues. But as Gene said, this is an important decision. Who is it best to represent this Republican Party? Who is it best to represent Delawareans against Senator Carper? Plain and simple. And I will share with you, and I will continue to share with you. I believe it's me. Only because of some very simple facts. And that is, I'm a family man. 29 years marriage to my lovely wife, father of two. I understand what it means to fight for a family. I understand what it means to have the heartaches and difficulties and challenges of a family, as do most Delawareans. I've lived it. Continue to live it, I should say. Because once a kid, always a kid, right? So I understand that I can relate to most Delawareans to that effect. I am a veteran, big military family. My dad was a career Naval Academy, 25 years, successful career man. I did 8 years as a Naval Intelligence Specialist, reservist. My son's at the Naval Academy right now. We have a lot of military in our family. We love our country. We love our flag. We love our Constitution. We will defend it. I don't support our Constitution. I will defend the Constitution, to include the Second Amendment. And I wasn't at that rally, by the way, because I was officiating my niece down in North Carolina, just for the record. So I would have otherwise been at that rally, but I was officiating my niece in her wedding, as I do, because I think marriage is an important part, and I'm honored to do that. Small businessman. 2/3 of our economy is small business. I understand what it means to sign that check on the front versus the back. I understand the challenges, the difficulties of payroll and overhead. It's not easy. I understand. I can connect to most Delawareans on that effect. But most importantly, I would just say that we're a person of courage and we're a person of leadership. And I think that's what we need in Delaware, back in Washington, D.C. Not a partisan politician who's lost touch with you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fight for Delaware families as I have fought for our family. That I will promise you. And that is what you can expect of Rob Arlett when I get to Washington, D.C. is I will fight for all of Delawareans because I care about you. And I look forward to earning your vote come September the 6th at the primary. So thank you very much.
This will conclude the debate, and just a couple of things real quick, and then we'll let you guys go, and you'll be able to do some more meet and greets with the candidates if you didn't get a chance to do that earlier. First, I want to thank Phoebe and Kevin with the ESRC for providing this opportunity and putting this together. A great job. I want to thank those of you out there who care enough to come on a Monday night when you could be home or out enjoying the great weather. And of course, I want to thank both candidates as well for coming in. I think that was a great question about future debates, and I hope that both will do more, and certainly maybe we can this location can be another one for that as well. And I also think having all four of you debate is a great idea as well, quite honestly, because I think that's important. As we go forward with we're in the month of June here. We've got July and August, and then very early September will be the primary, September the 6th. Just a quick station promo, as I've done for the last 5 years, and it would not be possible without the accessibility of gentlemen like Gene and Rob, that we will continue to have the candidates on, as many as I can, as best as I can. Certainly we live in a conservative area, and we will, of course, have as many Republican candidates. I never turned down any Democratic candidates, but since we're at the ESRC, we're not going to be talking about them right now. But I'll continue to do that. And again, I'm appreciative of the opportunities, and of course the listenership, as well. Taking my moderator hat off just for a quick second, just as an observation, and I've said this time and time again on the station, and I hope that not only the local parties, the county level, Eastern Sussex, Western Sussex, etc., but I hope that the point gets driven home, and I try to do this almost every Wednesday when I have Senator Pettyjohn, Representative Smick on, but this could be state, this could be those running for federal offices at the state level or to represent the state, and that is communication is the key, and pounding the point home and getting out. And I encourage these clubs to please push your state party for, and I know it sounds self-serving being on the radio, but whether it's radio or print or TV or all the above, I don't see enough communication and enough going out there and calling out the Democrats on a number of different issues. And both you gentlemen have brought those up, and I really encourage that you push the state party. And I know it takes money, but that is needed. I don't see it anywhere. I don't hear it anywhere. I'm happy to do my part for 4 hours a morning if I can, or 2 hours a morning when we have guests on. But it's up to you locally here to push your party to communicate and get the radio and TV and newspaper ads and call folks out. Because at the end of the day, if you don't educate those somewhat in Kent, but mostly in Newcastle County, and give them solutions and call them out on what has been wrong for so many years and what they're not doing to help men and women out here and children, then no one's going to know. You have to educate them, you have to call them out, and we don't see that enough. So I hope that you push for that, if I had 2 cents about that. All right, enough of my diatribe. The primary is, the last day to register for the primary is August 11th, and the primary is Thursday, September 6th. For more meetings for the Eastern Sussex Republican Club, SussexGOP.com is the website. And you can also talk with Kevin if you have any questions as well. But thank you so much, and I appreciate it, and hope to talk to you soon on the radio and see you soon again. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to meet Mr. Arlett, Mr. Truono in the lobby area.